Hi, this is Steph from Girl Inspired, and today we're going to learn about using this attachment on our sewing machine that is the Buttonhole sewing foot. And what it does is make perfect buttonholes for us without too much trouble. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the different parts of the foot here before I connect it to the machine, because I think it'll just make it a little bit easier to understand where everything goes and what everything's doing. So this is the foot in its entirety, and there's a bracket here that slides up and down, and this is where you're going to place the button in order to get the right measurement on your machine. And you'll see why when we put it onto the machine. So the button goes in there, and you just slide it so that it's tight. And then these plates here are what are going to tell your sewing machine to stop the length of the buttonhole. And right here, this little metal bar is where it attaches onto your sewing machine. And then inside, you can see in the little hole there, there's red marks that surround, that's where your needle will go as it's sewing, and that's also where you're going to line up your fabric for the start of the buttonhole. Okay, now we have the buttonhole foot connected onto the sewing machine, and you're going to find this. There's a little metal bar on your machine that you're going to pull down and make sure it's resting between those two tabs that we looked at when we looked at the foot apart from the machine. And what those two tabs do is they're like an indicator, so that as the machine is sewing the buttonhole, the tab will hit the metal bar and it'll tell the machine that that's the end of the length of the stitch, and it'll start stitching backwards. So what the machine is going to do is a straight stitch down the left side of the buttonhole, and then it's going to zigzag back up to the top, and then it's going to jump over to the right side of the buttonhole and stitch down, and then do a zigzag stitch back up. And at the bottom and the top of the buttonhole, it's going to make two larger zigzag stitches to close in the top and the bottom. Okay, so we're going to take our fabric that we want the buttonhole on, and I'm just using a scrap piece here, and I've marked the start of the buttonhole, and you're going to slide it into the machine there and make sure that your mark is lined up in the center of that window, and put down the presser foot, and then you can begin stitching. So it's going straight down with a straight stitch down to the bottom, and about there you can kind of see over there that the metal bar has hit the tab, and so it'll signal the machine to then go backwards with a zigzag stitch back up to the top. And then right there, that metal tab hit the back plastic part of the foot, and so it jumped over to the right side, and it stitches down, and then it does a large zigzag stitch at the bottom, and then it begins stitching a smaller zigzag stitch back up the right side till it hits that top tab again, and then it does a large zigzag stitch at the top, and then it just stops, and it's done. And there you have your finished buttonhole, and all you have to do is rip it open with your seam ripper.